Welcome back. You're watching Focus on Africa. Now, with the U.S. election rapidly approaching, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have been trying to woo undecided voters. Well, both candidates are campaigning in the key swing state of Wisconsin later, with 4 days left to go. National polls currently show Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump by 1 percentage point, but the other polls suggest Trump could take the popular vote. More than 65 million people have already cast their vote, beating the early voter turnout record set back in 2020. Okay, let's now speak to my colleague, Rhoda Odhiambo, who is in Washington with more details. Rhoda, thanks so much for your time. Tell us a bit more about what's been happening on the campaign trail today.
So, Waihiga, in different states, especially in the key states, you're seeing a lot of campaigners, both from the Democrat and the Republican side, go to different neighborhoods, canvassing for votes during both traditional and digital means to be able to ensure that voters do come out and vote both during early voting, voting by mail, or even voting on election day, as you're able to see, or as the viewers will be able to see in this particular clip.
The knock on the door. It's what Harrison Poku has done in every election cycle.
Well, it looks like it's over here.
He identifies as Ghanaian and has been living in the U.S. for the last 24 years. Elections matter deeply to him. But this year is different. Harrison drove to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, one of the battleground states in the election, from Maryland, just to get the vote out.
We're going to a territory where we don't know nobody.
He says he feels a responsibility to help shape the future of his society. But not everyone is convinced of the need to vote. One of them is Issa Wallace.
Oh, how you doing, sir? Oh, perfect, excellent, man. My name is Harrison. We're with volunteers with Kamala Harris's team.
I'm not going to say that I'm not going to be voting. I'm just not committed to it, fully committed to it.
Issa says presidents who have been elected by either of the parties have not been able to address some of the concerns affecting his family.
Economic disparity, tax issues, medical health issues, education issues, homeless issues.
This person-to-person approach is a strategy that both Democrats and Republicans hope will translate into votes for them at polling booths on November 5th. But in key states, a lot of persuasion is needed as voters could swing either way.
Wala Plege, of Liberian and Nigerian heritage and council member of Princeton George County in Maryland, says going door-to-door is vital in engaging African migrants living in America.
Many African immigrants, when they first came here, and I do remember years ago, we would hear them saying they don't, this is a temporary place. But when you knock on the door and say, what do you want to see in your community? I did that. I knocked over 10,000 doors in my district. And I asked each voter, many African voters, what do you want to see? What do you want me to do? That changes everything, because now that person starts thinking that I'm a part of the system.
For many, this election is crucial in ensuring that their concerns are not sidelined, but most importantly, want a seat at the table to speak up.
A lot of concerns that I have are childbirth. A lot of women of color are currently at risk, very highly compared to women that are not of color.
I'm worried about the economy because when things go up, the cost of food and everything else is going up.
Campaigns will continue up until the eve of Election Day, and as Kamala and Trump spend more time in key states, campaigners like Harrison are optimistic that every knock and interaction with a citizen will translate to a vote either before or on polling day.
Rhoda, 4 days to the polls. There's still all to play for here, and the race is looking very close. Tell us more about what you're seeing in the latest polls.
Well, in the latest polls, just like you mentioned earlier, polls do keep changing every single day. So, but in many of the polls that have been conducted by various organizations, Trump and Kamala are both of them leading by 1%, and all this would vary on the days that the polls have been released. But what a lot of political experts are saying is that many should not be banking on what the data is saying from these particular polls, because if we look at the particular style of canvassing that both campaigners from these teams are using, is to go to these key particular states where there are what they are known as swing states, because the voters could vote either way to be able to persuade the voters who have not yet decided who they are going to vote for. So what a lot of political experts are saying is that the numbers, of course, would show that either Kamala is leading by 1% or Trump is leading by 1%, but it all boils down to how many people will indeed go out and vote, either by the various strategies that are available to vote here in the U.S.
Tell us more about what sort of action will be seen in these key swing states that, quite significant in this election. Tell us more.
In these particular states, we're seeing both Kamala and Trump doing a lot of campaigns. Some of them are doing two campaigns or three campaigns. Like today, for instance, both of them will be in Wisconsin, one of the key states. And if you look at the geographic and the political turnout of voters in this particular state, in 2016, Donald Trump was able to garner enough votes from this particular state to be declared president. And then in 2020, Biden was also able to get a majority of the votes for him to be able to be declared president from this particular state. And that is why both of them will be in this particular state campaigning to be able to ensure that they're able to persuade the moderate and undecided voters in messages that they're targeting for them to be able to go out and vote. They're using various ways such as apps, phone banking, calling them, and they're not only targeting the super voters, and these are voters who have been voting in every election cycle, but they're also targeting first-time voters in ensuring that those who are eligible to vote, whether Africans, Hispanics, Black Americans, and even the Americans themselves, would go out and vote either Democrat or Republican.
Rhoda, what issues would you say matter most to the African Americans or the African migrants that you've spoken to there? Because, I mean, this election is being followed quite closely, even here on the African continent.
It is, and if we look at particularly for the African Americans and the African diaspora here, some of the key issues is, of course, housing. Most of them are not able to afford proper houses that they can be able to raise their families. A key concern for them is that they would like to own homes, especially when you're talking about homes, it's more of townhomes. Education is also a key issue where they're saying there are a lot of disparities, access to healthcare, and also if we look at immigration for those people who are migrated here and are staying here, they're saying that they're not getting policies that are able to address some of the concerns that they have. And if we look at the African continent, looking in some of what African countries and why they're mostly concerned about this particular election, is the foreign policy relation that African countries has with America. Number one of them is, of course, the military cooperation with states in the Sahel. We also look at the trade agreements within the U.S. and African countries. And, of course, healthcare. If we look at the funding model by different African countries, they do depend a lot from funding from the U.S. government.
Well, Rhoda, in some of the elections that we've covered earlier in the year here on Focus on Africa, the issue of voter apathy came up, where voters felt that it doesn't matter who they elect. They basically felt the political class is not addressing their issues. Has voter apathy come up in some of the discussions you've had, even with the story that you just told us there? And how rampant a challenge do you think it will be?
It has indeed come out where people, yes, they want to vote, but some of the people I've been able to talk to, especially African Americans and Africans in the diaspora who are living here, African migrants, some of them would say that, yes, they've been living here for the last 24 years or 35 years, but they've seen the same issues that have always been there, not being addressed. Some of the issues that they've continuously say that they've not been addressed is the issue of housing, is the issue of equality when it comes to their children accessing education, and also the aspect of healthcare. They're saying that as much as, yes, policies have been set aside, and with the U.S. having a different structure of federal and other states, the states would vary from, for instance, Washington here, states like Pennsylvania, the laws would not be the same, but of course there would be several federal laws that are governing all the 50 states in the United States. So the key issues still remain the same thing, the economy. A lot of people are saying that cost of food, a liter of milk, bread has gone up due to inflation, and also crime rates. Rates have gone up. If we look at different studies that have been done by different centers, they're saying that crime is also a major issue, especially in those key states where both Kamala and Trump are campaigning.
Mwaura Odhiambo, thank you so much for keeping us updated on the state of the race of this U.S. election. Joining us from Washington, D.C.